true crime story of a crazed man who slaughtered his entire family, cut open their chests, removed their hearts, and gouged out his own eyeballs, before eating one of them. The story of Andre Lee Thomas reads like something out of a horror novel, with elements of violent murder, mutilation, hallucinations, and self-cannibalization. Except, this story is far from being a fictional tale we can hide from with the lights on. Born in 1983, Andre was raised by his mother with 5 brothers in Sherman, Texas, near to the Oklahoma border. They were a poor family, never having enough money to pay the bills, and relying on handouts from the state. Andre's mother was an alcoholic who suffered from various mental health issues including depression after being abused as a child and later in her adult life. The family had already suffered after Andre's uncle was shot dead by his father-in-law. By the age of 10, Andre was known to be suffering from hallucinations and delusions which had seemingly come out of nowhere. He often told friends that he heard the voices of angels and demons arguing inside his head and couldn't get rid of their voices. He later claimed he was the real person behind one of the characters in the Mortal Kombat video game. So much so that he had developed an unwritten history of his life within the game and the circumstances that led to his image being used. When he was 14, he had already survived 2 suicide attempts and been arrested multiple times for theft and disorderly behavior. Despite being placed on suicide watch many times, he received no mental health help, something which would come back to haunt the city of Sherman. At the age of 15, Andre started a relationship with a white girl called Laura Boren, who became pregnant with his child when she was 14. They named him Andre Jr. and married when Andre was 18 but split up shortly after when Laura had a daughter by another man. In the months leading up to the murder, and suffering from the fallout of the marriage, Andre's already obvious mental health condition began to deteriorate further. He began to believe he was hearing the voice of God in his head. Because God told him not to talk for days at a time, he put duct tape over his mouth to silence himself, only removing the tape to smoke marijuana and drink alcohol to help him quiet the voice in his head, which never went away. He also harmed himself with various implements which put him in hospital multiple times, but he would check himself out before receiving any psychiatric treatment. Andre had been forced to live alone after his ex-wife took the children and moved in with her new boyfriend. The loneliness combined with ill mental health and inability to pay bills became too much to bear. In early March 2004, a few days before the murders, Andre stabbed himself in the chest and was rushed to hospital, claiming he was attempting to cross over into heaven. He left before being committed to psychiatric care. 2 days later, on March 27, 2004, Andre waited for Laura's boyfriend to go to work, then kicked down the door to their 3rd-floor apartment and stabbed her in the chest multiple times. As she fell to the floor, he broke through her ribcage with the knife and cut her chest open before removing a portion of her lungs. Not content with viciously murdering the mother of his child, he moved to the children's bedroom where he stabbed 4-year-old Andre Jr. and Laura's 1-year-old daughter to death. After their blood splashed the walls of the room, he opened their chests and removed their hearts. He then went back to Laura and laid down next to her body before stabbing himself 3 times in the chest. After a few minutes, he realized the stab wounds were non-fatal and decided to walk home with the children's hearts in his pockets, later stating he believed he was in hell. After he told his family what he had done, he surrendered himself to the Sherman Police Department. He told officers that his 3 victims were possessed by demons and that he cut them open to mix their blood together in order to save their souls. 5 days after the murders, while in a cell awaiting trial, Andre used his fingers to gouge out his right eyeball. When officers entered his cell, the eyeball was on the floor next to him, and he was reciting verses from the Bible claiming he had removed his eye because of his sins. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and spent many weeks in a hospital before his trial, which began in February 2005. Despite being mentally ill, Andre, a black man, was put on trial in front of an all-white jury, many of whom were openly against interracial marriages. The prosecution convinced the jury that André's insanity defense should be ignored as his mental illness was made worse by drug use. The jury found him guilty of 3 murders and he was sentenced to death. 3 years later, while on death row in Texas, his condition had worsened and he claimed to see tiny demons coming out the walls and playing music to him. He cut his own throat with the side of a plate but survived the suicide attempt. An appeal in October 2008 upheld the original conviction and reaffirmed that André was not insane at the time of the murders. 2 months later, on December 9, 2008, André ripped his left eyeball out and ate it, blinding himself completely. He told doctors he ate his left eye so that the government would not be able to read his thoughts. After he was discharged from hospital, he was sent to an institute that housed prisoners with mental health issues. It was the first time in his life that he would be cared for by mental health professionals. In 2015, a human rights group suggested that André's self-torment was punishment enough and condemned the death sentence and lack of help. In April 2021, after another appeal claiming the original defense was ineffective, the original verdict was upheld yet again, and André was to remain under a death sentence indefinitely. Unsurprisingly, André's case caught the public's attention and raised questions over what exactly constitutes mental health and an insanity plea. It remains certain that a mentally healthy person would not rip out their eye and eat it on the orders of a hallucination. Thanks for watching. Please share and subscribe on my YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook @Monpy Stories for more.